So I spent the last couple of days working on my latest restoration project, and now that it is finished, I thought I would make a video about it and share it with the world. So what we have here is a very nice antique street razor. The blade was made in Sheffield, and the scales, or the handle as some people call them, but they're scales, these scales are made of ivory. Now I bought the ivory scales at my local flea market. This was last year before all this coronavirus stuff hit the news, and I brought it home, and it originally had a very worn out razor blade inside it, and try as I might, I couldn't get that blade to sharpen, couldn't get it to hold an edge, couldn't shave with it. And the idea occurred to me that I could just simply take out the old blade and put in a new one. Here it is. It's a Bengal blade, as you can see. Nice square point on the end, nice and shiny. So what I did was I went back to my local flea market a few weeks later, and I bought a trashed up, broken old straight razor for like $5. Got it home, tore the whole thing apart, and I had all the bits and pieces. I had the blade, I had the pins, I had the washers, and yesterday I started putting everything together. So first thing I had to do was to get out the old blade. To do that, I had to file down the pin at the pivot end, which is here, until I could remove the collar or washer, which is this little thing right here. So once I popped that off, once I got rid of the head of the pin, I could use a punch and hammer to drive the pin out through the top scale, through the razor, and through the bottom scale, along with all the other bits and pieces, all the other washers. I used the pins from the other razor, which I had salvaged the functional blade from, and then I took out the broken blade from this razor, which I still have, and this is the original blade that went with these scales. It was made in Solingen in Germany in about, I think it's about 1900, something like that. As you can see, this blade is well and truly, I mean, this has had it. This has really had it. There is no metal on here that you can sharpen, that you can shave with, nothing like that. This razor, this blade, does have one interesting feature. It has a barber's notch at the end there, which is a nice feature. But originally the blade would have been much larger. It would have been about twice this size. So that's a lot of metal to go missing. So I had to take this out of here, and using the pins from the razor which I got this blade from, I rebuilt it and swapped the blades around. Unfortunately, it didn't go off without a hitch. I did, very annoyingly, crack the scales. As you can see, there's one crack here. There's another one here. But then this is very old ivory. It's brittle, it's fragile. And if I turn the razor around, you can see that it is very thin. Very thin. I mean, ivory has always been expensive. So even when people made things out of ivory, they used as little ivory as possible because it costs so much. And antique straight razors with ivory scales are always very, very thin. So to put the to reassemble and repair the scales, what I did was I glued strips of very, very, very thin steel. So thin you can literally cut it with a pair of scissors. So I used a pair of scissors, trimmed strips of steel about, I don't know, an inch long, inch and a half, so long, and I punched holes in them with a hole punch, and then it was simply a matter of gluing these strips of steel onto the ivory so that they would hold these broken off bits of ivory back on the scales around the stress point, which is the hole that was drilled for the pins. So there's one there, there's another one here. In fact, if I zoom in, you can just see there. That's the strip of, or one of the strips of steel. So that's in there. So once that was all dried, I had to leave that overnight, let it dry. Then it was simply a matter of putting the razor back together in the same way that it would have been done originally. And this is the result. And I'm very pleased with the end product. It shaves beautifully. I have sharpened this and I have shaved with it. The blade has a full range of motion, as you can see, and most importantly, it closes perfectly. So everything is centered, everything is straight, there's no bent wobbly bits. If you want to see some photographs of the restoration process, of what I went through to swap these two blades around, then check out my blog. I will leave a link to the article where I wrote about this in much more detail down in the description section below. So leave a like, leave a comment, leave a rating. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you very much for watching.